Hi, I'm your host, Roseanne, a certified nutrition coach with a background in psychology. Here on Hey Sugar podcast, you will learn how to live a healthy and sustainable lifestyle without dieting. I'll be teaching you practical tips that you can incorporate in your unique lifestyle. I am going to help you break any dieting mindset traps and show you that a healthy and sustainable lifestyle is doable. I'm going to keep it simple and I'm going to keep it real. Now, you see, I was once overweight, I was once medically obese and had a diagnosis of high cholesterol. I've been able to keep my weight off and keep my cholesterol numbers to a healthy range for over the past 15 years. So if you're ready to change your life for good and create a healthy and sustainable lifestyle for yourself, then this is for you. Let's go.
Hey Sugar, the year of our Lord, are we still saying carbohydrates are the enemy? I mean, listen, I do not know how many of you have said, I can't lose weight because I'm eating carbohydrates. And I can't even begin to tell you how many people, and I'm not kidding you, almost every single day on my Instagram, Coach Roseanne, that people write to me and ask me this question: Coach, can I lose weight while still eating carbohydrates? And the answer is a resounding yes, you can. And I get it. I understand. I do understand how the dieting industry has made, especially women, because when you think about who encompasses the majority or who's trying to lose a lot of weight, when you think about the gym, about 70% of the people who go to the gym majority are women. And a majority of people who do diets, majority are women. And why is it that we find a lot of women are doing carbohydrates? It's because, unfortunately for us as women, we've been conditioned as a society to seek permission, ask for permission to do things, expect other people to do things for us. And we haven't been conditioned to really sort of think, not think for ourselves, but we have not been conditioned to do stuff for ourselves. We've been conditioned from when we were little girls to seek approval and to ask and raise our hands. And so when we are struggling with our weight, it's almost like an automatic response because of the conditioning that has happened over the years, where we raise our hand up and say, okay, show me what to do. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing to do. Yes, we should seek help. Yes, we should go out there and seek for help. But what has happened over the years, the average woman spends 17 years of her life dieting. That statistic right there tells me there's something wrong with the approach of dieting. Because what we've seen over the years is all these different methods coming up, but women still continue to struggle with their weight. And one of the biggest reasons I truly believe why women continue to struggle with our weight is because we've been told to eliminate carbohydrates from our diet. And I've said carbohydrates are not the enemy. Carbohydrates are actually not bad. And so what we're going to do is sort of try to understand, okay, what are the types of carbohydrates that are there? And what are the things that we need to do to make them a part of our lifestyle? Because especially for me as an African woman, I grew up in Nairobi, Kenya, and I've known for years I've grown up eating carbohydrates. And so for me, not having that, something that I've grown up with as a part of my lifestyle, just does not sit right with me. So it's important to understand, okay, what kind of carbohydrates are there, and maybe understand or dissect a little bit further what we should do when we see these carbohydrates. So we have three types of carbohydrates. We have what's known as complex carbohydrates, then we have simple carbohydrates, and then we have fibrous carbohydrates. Now, the complex carbohydrates are the carbohydrates that come naturally from foods, things from root vegetables, things like arrowroots, like sweet potatoes, like oats, like rice. These are carbohydrates. They're good carbs because they also have fiber and they also have nutrients in them. And these are naturally occurring from the ground up. And these are carbs that I absolutely love and I think we should incorporate as part of our diet. Then the other types of carbohydrates that we do have are what's known as simple carbohydrates. Now, these are the bad type. The simple carbohydrates are the ones that have usually all the necessary nutrients have been removed, all the nutrients that are found either naturally occurring in them have been removed. So we're talking about things like white bread. We are talking about things like cookies, like white flour. We're talking about things like mandazis, again, made from refined flour. Cookies, biscuits, cakes. These come from what's known as simple carbohydrates. They typically will digest. Once we eat them in the body, they're going to digest very quickly and usually will cause you to become hungrier even a lot quicker. So these are the simple carbohydrates. And then we have the fibrous carbohydrates, and these are the ones that come from our plants. And for these type of carbohydrates, they are not completely broken down in the body or through our digestion. Instead, they pass through our intestines to help digest our food. And these are the ones that are typically found in a lot of our vegetables. And so when we're talking about eliminating carbohydrates, it's really important for you to recognize that we do have good carbohydrates that are good and essential for our bodies. And the good carbohydrates we should be eating a lot more of are the complex carbohydrates as well as the fibrous carbohydrates. Those should be a part of our diet. Those are carbohydrates that we should include because, again, they have the nutrients, they have the minerals in them. And these are good for us. They're good for our digestive tract, they're good for our gut, they're even good for us, especially if you're someone who works out, they're good for building muscle. And so when I hear people say, can I eat carbohydrates and still lose weight? Absolutely, yes, you can. Now, when it comes to things like the carbohydrates that you want to incorporate, the key, though, is to ensure that you're eating the right amount of carbohydrates. I also want to put a caveat in here. If you do have some underlying metabolic issues, something like diabetes, for someone like you would definitely need to monitor the amount of carbohydrates coming in because for you, your insulin levels will tend to be affected by the amount of carbohydrates that you're eating. And so for you, strongly recommend you please follow up with a doctor or a certified nutrition coach who deals specifically with diabetes. And this is diabetes type 2 that typically tends to be lifestyle-induced, lifestyle-caused, and this generally will happen for you when you are older. And so when you think about carbohydrates and why we should not eat them, there's a lot of controversy that's out there about carbohydrates. Also based on the camp that you believe that is going to give you the best results. But study after study is showing and continues to show, especially for women, we need these carbohydrates. We need to eat them. They need to be a part of our diet. For a lot of women who have gone either no carbohydrates or low carb, you tend to notice they tend to have all these issues that come up for them. Either you notice for women, they have increase in cravings. So you'll find that when you don't eat too many carbohydrates, there's an increase in cravings. And that's a result of you change hormonally, where you notice there's an increase in your cortisol output because you're not eating enough carbohydrates. And so you end up craving too many carbohydrates, right? You notice for some people, they have a suppressed immune function where their body does not function as well as it should in their immunity. You also find for some women, they will stop having their period because they are going too low carbohydrates. So these are things that you need to notice and you need to recognize. For other people, their mood function gets messed up. So they're not thinking clearly. They do not have enough energy as a result of not having enough carbohydrates. So you're feeling lousy, you're feeling lethargic, you have brain fog, so you cannot even think clearly. All these are things that happen as a result of just not having enough carbohydrates, slowing down your metabolism. So there's all these different factors that come up as a result of not eating enough carbohydrates. And it's really important for you to recognize, how do you function? How does your unique body function with carbohydrates and without carbohydrates? Now, I want to be clear. There are people who do well with a low carbohydrate diet or lower carbohydrate diet. But for majority of the population, studies are beginning to show and continue to show for majority of people, they actually do better, function better, respond better when they're eating more carbohydrates. So it's important for you to know yourself, become self-aware, whether you love carbohydrates or not. Do you want them as part of your diet? If you've grown up with carbohydrates and you feel you want them to be a part of your diet, recognize that that's something that you love, you want to enjoy. Because listen, life is to be lived. This is not where, this is actually, let me tell you, there's a question that I always ask myself. I heard Gary Vee say this many, many years ago, and I heard him say something to the effect: when you're on your deathbed in your 90s or 100, what are the things you're going to be thinking about? What are the things that you're going to be thinking about that maybe you didn't do? And one of those things that came up for me was like, wow, I really want to be able to help women understand that they can eat all foods. They don't have to restrict themselves. And if I do that and I help 1, 2, 3 women, my job is done. My job is done. So I would want you to think, you don't want to be in your 90s, 100s and saying, I wish I ate more, right? Or I wish I ate more carbohydrates. Like, I want you to ensure that, you're living your life to the fullest, but don't allow foods to be the thing that makes you not live your life. So it's really important for you, yes, to ensure that you're eating your carbohydrates, you're eating the right carbohydrates, you're eating the right amount of carbohydrates, because what you want to do is you want to be able to stay in this state of homeostasis, a state of balance. Because what I've found that happens is, yes, a lot of people will eliminate carbohydrates, and yes, they're going to notice their weight dropping. Yes, that usually tends to be water weight. And then what happens is, once they add the carbohydrates back in, the weight comes back in, which again is water weight. And so they're like, oh my God, see, it's the carbohydrates. So the brain connects carbohydrates and they're thinking the carbohydrates are the issue. No, carbohydrates are not the issue. They're not the problem. It is overeating foods that is the problem. It is overeating the simple carbohydrates that is the issue. And it's generally just not staying in a state of homeostasis, a state of balance. When you find yourself going to one extreme, your body will always want to come back into balance. And this is exactly what happens when we eliminate carbohydrates from our diet. We are going to one extreme, and then when we're trying to find the balance, we tend to think the carbohydrates are the issue. Girl, I promise you, carbs are not the issue, unless you do have some underlying metabolic condition. Remember that. But carbs generally are not the issue. It's overeating, overdoing, not having a state of balance when you're eating these foods, and that in itself is what causes the issue. So yes, eat your carbohydrates, enjoy your carbohydrates. Obviously, you're eating other foods in balance. You're eating your protein, you're eating your fat. You're eating all these things in balance, but it's important to recognize and remember, carbs are not the problem. All right, hon? Remember, you've got one life, you've got one body, and I want you to treasure it.